Welcome to the Impact interview. Today, we are really honored to have with us Mr. Stephen Forshaw, the Chief Representative for Australia, New Zealand, and the Pacific at Airbus. Stephen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure.
So as we all know, the discussion of decarbonization in the aviation sector has been ongoing for many years. So how do you see hydrogen playing a role in the decarbonization journey of the aviation sector? And can they coexist alongside the other initiatives such as sustainable fuel and electrification? And which technology do you think will end up winning?
So there's a lot to unpick there. I think the first point is we're not making a bet on a winner. There will be no one distinct winner. There's a place for all of these technologies in helping aviation decarbonize. On short haul, small aircraft, for example, helicopters, commuter aircraft, electrification will play a significant role. But of course, with battery technology, batteries are very heavy and their endurance is very short. So they'll serve well for very short haul flights, a few hundred kilometers at the most. Then you'll start to be able to use hydrogen as either a propellant or as the source of fuel in a fuel cell to power a new zero emission technology aircraft. We're still a little way away from that because the technology is still developing. Airbus aims to have a hydrogen powered commercial aircraft in service by 2035. So the early generations of those aircraft will probably be in the 80 to 100 seat, 2,000 or so kilometers range. For everything after that, so long haul, wide body, very large passenger aircraft like we're used to in this part of the world, we're going to need to use sustainable fuels. But the importance of hydrogen is that hydrogen can also be a catalyst for some of those new sustainable fuels. We don't have enough biomass to produce the amount of sustainable fuel we're going to need to power aviation into a decarbonized world. So to do that, we're going to need hydrogen. We're going to need the technology to continue to develop, to be able to use that hydrogen to create synthetic fuels that essentially allow us to replace on a litre for litre basis the aviation fuel that currently powers our jet aircraft.
Yes. And really exciting news, as we all know that Airbus aims to bring the world's first hydrogen-powered commercial aircraft to the market by 2035. So could you please elaborate on the configuration and technologies that Airbus is exploring to ensure the sufficient supply and production of hydrogen, especially in terms of the commercial aircraft?
So obviously, I'm not going to telegraph right now what the configuration of the aircraft looks like for a couple of reasons. Firstly, we're still developing that. And secondly, I think there's a lot of commercially sensitive work that will go into developing that aircraft. But the important point to make here is that aircraft is going to be reliant on an ecosystem. So unlike today, where the aircraft we develop play within a well-established ecosystem of fuel at airports, reliably supplied, quality controlled and checked, consistent all over the world, a new standard of aircraft powered by hydrogen will need a new fuel ecosystem around it. That's going to require an enormous effort around infrastructure to support the hydrogen fuel that'll be used and to deliver that fuel to the aircraft. So an important point and an important engagement in events like this one this week is to bring together the ecosystem, airports, producers, infrastructure providers that are all going to be critical to making sure that when we develop that new aircraft, the infrastructure is able to support it. We have the hydrogen ready to be able to flow, to be able to support the aircraft. So we're working with partners all over the world to make sure that this new aircraft will have the support that it needs by the time it flies.
Yes. So speaking of the international competition, as we all know, the global race for the hydrogen-powered commercial aircraft is actually intensifying. So in your view, what are the key prerequisites, for the widespread scale-up of the hydrogen-powered aircraft? And what essential collaboration is Airbus engaged to enhance the hydrogen ecosystem?
So the first point to make here is that it's relatively easy to develop a hydrogen-powered plane. I think there's a lot of people around the world who know how to do that and are doing that now. The issue, though, is bringing it to commercial service. That means carrying passengers and freight on revenue-generating flights that help return a profit to the airlines that are operating. That's a different question. To do that, we need to get the aircraft through a rigorous standard of certification by safety regulators around the world. That will take years. So I think we have to be very clear that the process will be a very long one. But at the end of the day, what we now know is that hydrogen is most likely to be the most viable source of zero emission flight. Sustainable fuels will bring emissions down. We may get emissions down by 80, maybe 85%, but we'll never get to zero. And so hydrogen offers us the only opportunity to get to true zero in aviation. But it will be a journey to get there. And so, the pathway that we're foreshadowing will be a long one. But it's very exciting to see that, companies like ours, as well as the partners we're working with around the world, including here in Australia and across in New Zealand, are working very hard with us to prove the viability on a commercial level, but also to support the rigorous infrastructure that will be required for those aircraft to be able to operate.
Yes. So let's looking ahead. How do you envision the role of hydrogen evolving in the aviation sector? And what long-term impact do you think the hydrogen will have on both the industry and the global carbon emissions?
So look, one of the things about aviation is that we're a relatively young industry. We've been flying commercial aircraft since only about the 1920s or so. So as an industry, we're just over 100 years old. In that 100 years, the technology has transformed enormously. We're able to fly hundreds of people to the other side of the planet in under 24 hours, and in some cases to do that without stopping. The next iteration of technology is focusing on making our industry more sustainable. So we know to do that, the only way to do that in the past has been to burn fossil fuels. The next stage of transformation for our entire industry will be how to get the carbon footprint down so that our contribution to global emissions ends up reducing. The challenge we have is we're a very hard to abate sector. The technology hasn't existed until relatively recently to power flight with low or no emissions. As we develop that technology, bringing it to market, making it commercially viable, and absolutely ensuring its safety and quality to the traveling public is our mission. And if we can do that, then it will take some time. But if we can do that, we ensure the future longevity of the air transport sector for people to be able to fly for many generations to come.
Yes. So thank you, Stephen, for sharing us with your invaluable insights, expertise in the field of sustainable aviation, such as green hydrogen and Airbus pathway to the net zero future. So thank you so much for joining us. And thank you
Great
for your
pleasure.
time.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.